This is just a mic check for the online stream. We are going to be beginning momentarily. This is just a sound check. This is just a sound check. Okay, hello. Welcome everyone to today's panel discussion about dance classes online in this time of global pandemic and social distancing. My name is V. Paul, and I will moderate today's talk. And just as a matter of background, for 6 years I was a newspaper arts reporter and a dance writer. I've had the pleasure of observing our Twin Cities dance community for about 20 years as a photographer and videographer, and by virtue of my relationship with dancer instructor Laura Vertusio for 21 years, I've also had a bit of insider baseball access, as it were. Today I'm joined by three Twin Cities dancers and educators to recap what the last 7 weeks or so have been like for them as they faced the challenges of revamping their classes for an online distance learning format because of COVID-19 and Minnesota's shelter in place. In fact, just yesterday, Minnesota Governor Walz extended his order for the second time. So our next milestone here in Minnesota is in 18 days. Let me say that teaching and learning dance online is not new, and I understand that. The first ever online dance class broadcast out to the web from Simon Fraser University, go Canada, under the watchful eye of Iris Garland and Lisa Nagel way back in 1997. It was literally virtual. Body images were rendered as computer graphics. Fast forwarded, and distance learning went from needing a satellite dish and a huge production truck to basically just a cable out of a wall. Resources for and research about online dance pedagogy in K-12 and higher ed existed pre-COVID-19. But for many in our community, in-person, real-time is the method of delivery. So recreational dance and fitness focus sessions, those are all over the internet. The freshman class of 2022, they will be the first batch to have never known life without Facebook. In 2023, those students will have never not had YouTube. So learning dance steps via video in real time or asynchronously are the ways they pass the time when they're standing in line at the grocery. And that brings us to today. We are not talking about learning dance steps. We are talking about a dance education to perform, to think critically, to create, to engage with others, to communicate outwards, to understand where the art form came from, and to be prepared for where it is going. So taking dance classes out of the studio and into living rooms was an intensely urgent and heavy lift those first few weeks for many of you out there. It has now become an emergent activity as it's become clear that long-term management of the pandemic is still unclear, and our new normal might include social distancing and distance learning through summer, through the fall. 18 months has been bandied about as that, sense of getting control. So it very well will be not for the next 18 days, but quite a bit longer. So today I have Karla Grotting on faculty at the University of Minnesota Theater and Dance Program, Kaleena Miller, the co-director of the dance program at the St. Paul Conservatory for the Performing Arts, and Brittany Radke Milan, who owns Elevate Performing Arts Center in Bloomington, Minnesota. And so with that, I'm going to do a quick switch to bring them on screen. There they are. We're going to lose me. So hello, folks. And your mics should be unmuted. So if you wouldn't mind, go ahead. Just do a quick introduction. Let's go with, since I went with Karla in my lead there. Karla, just a quick introduction of where you've been dancing these past few weeks.
Hi, I'm Karla Grotting. I have been dancing in my living room, which is basically a 5x8 rug. I've added a lot of lighting instruments around, and I'm careful what color I wear so I can be seen. I have a laptop. I have an Ethernet hookup. I've been learning a lot of what I've gotten technically has been support from Paul and helped me able to function. I've been doing a lot of asynchronous assignments as well, and just trying to make go of it.
Thank you. Kaleena?
A lot of my work has been here at my desk, sending emails, setting up things. When I do go teach, I am lucky enough to have Bellari Teatro keys to there, that and Anne is letting me go teach on a beautiful hardwood floor. I live in a duplex, so I'm trying not to bother my housemates. Tap dancing's pretty loud, so yeah, I am going on over to a dance studio to do the actual teaching work.
And Brittany.
Yeah, right now I am actually, so I'm at my parents' lake place. So we have a loft here. So I'm using that. It's actually pretty open and pretty spacious. So it's worked out it's worked out well. It's better than my house. And I could always go to the studio, but we're trying our best to really stay at home between the newborn that I have and family members who need for us to stay at home. So
Great. Thank you for joining me today. So, as a matter of transparency for the folks online, I sent out 3 questions that were basically what worked, what didn't, and what might be a long-term experience from this. And you all gave some great and thoughtful answers. So, the question I'm now going to pose to you, sort of discussed based off of your answers, is this first one. You all indicated that you needed to redesign teaching methods or rethink about teaching methods to suit the strengths of the online tools. And as I understand it, you all went with Zoom as your platform. So what successes do you think that effort, the effort of redesigning to suit an online tool, what successes does that bring to your classes? And anyone can go first.
I'll go first. So we at SPCPA, we've been doing sort of a threefold system for weekly teaching. We're giving a one kind of bigger online or bigger weekly assignment where it's more them being creative and making something. So hopefully they get away from a little bit of screen time. 2 technique classes via Zoom, a little bit shorter than our normal class periods of an hour and 20 minutes. Now we're doing about 35 to 45-minute technique classes. And then we're doing an optional book club where students can read something that a teacher has given or watch something and then come for discussion. So we're just trying to hit on, continuing to dance, having them make things and be creative in that aspect and hopefully away from the screen for a little bit. And then also reading and watching. That's what we've implemented.
Great. Who would like to go next?
I really had to start out making friends with Google Questionnaire. I really needed to know which of my students had stable internet, who was sharing a laptop, who had access to space, who was staying on a friend's couch and really didn't. I needed to know, who was learning from Russia and couldn't meet us at our class time. So I really had to get a lot of information from them so that I could design my class to work for them. I did make a lot of supplemental videos for students who couldn't meet at our class time. I started out, should say my classes have a wide range of dance experiences within that class. And I really pride myself on being able to teach to a wide range of abilities and experiences, but it became much harder to do online. And at first I began doing supplemental videos to help the low end. And I discovered I really needed to make those videos to be able to push the high end so that in class when we were together, I could scoop up the least experienced dancers and make sure that they were staying engaged and prepared and give the dancers who are really ready to fly a chance to do that outside of class if they wanted to go deeper. Asynchronous learning assignments were really a revelation to me. I felt like I was just in designing the assignments. It was very interesting to see where I wanted to go deep, what they would engage with. And I tried, it's a 1-credit class, so I didn't want to make a lot of writing for them. So they just had short responses to things, but it gave us a chance to communicate, them writing, me responding to their writing, them coming back. And I felt like we had a much more personal engagement than I actually did in the classroom about the subject matter. So that was a success and a revelation for me. Canvas, breakout rooms, all those things were really helpful and positive within it.
I feel like we're in a little bit of a different situation at Elevate because we have everyone from like 2-year-olds all the way up to 18-year-olds. So trying to keep some younger kids engaged has been a challenge. So we've come up with like a lot of different fun ways to use our virtual world, and everything from like having a pet parade, because I don't know if you guys have had pets visits, but there's a lot of pets that come to class for whatever reason. So using that to keep them interested and excited. I've used the breakout rooms a lot with separating kids and giving them opportunities to work on choreography and then come together and piece something together. And then since we can record it, we record it together. And that's been really fun for them. A good creative outlet. It keeps it different and interesting. And I feel like for the kids, I have to keep it interesting every week because it's tough. It's tough for them to come. They're already doing school online, and then to do dance online when they're not used to that. So for me, it's been keeping using the virtual world to make some fun events for them. We also have used it to have our own like meetings. We call our Friday meeting a town hall meeting, and every week is a different subject. And so we've done things like talked about careers in dance and given them information of if they want to go into a dance program and what that would look like and how they audition. And so giving them opportunities to ask questions and talk about things that we wouldn't normally have at the studio. So.
No, that's pretty interesting. I'm going to put myself back on screen so I'm not just some kind of godlike voice here. But the one of the things that comes to mind right away, I'm just going to do a quick follow-up because we've got a little bit of time here. And there are folks that are watching online. One of the comments was they do a pet parade also. So that's kind of a great thing. That it seems there is a mix. You need to sort of keep in mind extra accommodations because you don't know people's online access and device access and space access. But on top of that, so that's on the sort of the negative side of what we're doing. But on the positive side, you're finding that you're able to get some extra detailed work in or share some extra content that didn't occur through the only in-person way. And that sounds like a great success. So I wonder, can you talk a little bit about the balance you're having to strike? I know, Karla, you mentioned this in one of your answers, between what the time the students spend on work in their 90-minute course, 60-minute course, and the extra work that you're asking of them from an asynchronous fashion. And Brittany, you've got those extra town halls, and Kaleena, you mentioned that you've been using a lot of recorded material or asynchronous work. How do you find that balance, and has that been a successful shift, or was that kind of a bit of an obstacle?
I'll go. I used Google questionnaire to find out, how hard was it for them to meet. And we basically decided we normally met for 2.5-hour sessions, that one day would be live dance class and that the other day would be an asynchronous assignment. I designed the assignment to make sure that it would take less time than the 1.5-hour dance class would. So I was really pacing it, but really trying to make it fun and engaging, having them either write responses or make videos for me. And that was really positive. And they could do it at their own time. I was also flexible, and I made all due dates the very last day of class so that, I didn't have, they could do it when they needed to do it. And that was something they seemed to appreciate.
We started off giving the kids little homework assignments at the beginning of all of it, but then found that they were getting really overwhelmed with that between schoolwork and then having ballet homework was a lot. The kids would get anxious if they didn't get it finished before coming to class, and it became this like emotional thing. And we didn't want it to be that, especially because it's this is an extra thing that they're coming to us for. So we wanted it to be an exciting and happy thing. So we kind of changed that, and we're still sending out information ahead of time, videos for them to look at, to reference for class. But at the same time, we're using our class time maybe more to talk to them than we normally would. So we're giving time for them to speak, a lot more one-on-one corrections than we would normally. And I think that's more or less giving them more time to talk. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say is we're using I started anyways using the whiteboard option on Zoom, which has been nice. So as we go through class, we're typing up everything that we've worked on, and then I can post that afterwards. We have a private Facebook group for the studio, and we call it our virtual Elevate page. And I post all of my notes from class there afterwards so the kids can look at them, especially for like my little kids tab class. I try to type everything out as I'm doing it, and then I say it, and then I have them say it, and then especially because of the lagging and all that, that's been helpful. And then I send that and I put that on my Facebook page for them to see and for parents to talk through it with them if they want. So
yeah, I think there's been, and I'm sure this is across the board for all dance educators, a lot of care for making sure that everyone's not overwhelmed. I know, looking at my daily calendar, being like, I've got a lot going on today. Oh, it's 7 Zoom meetings. Okay, it's really exhausting. And so we're all experiencing this. And so taking a lot of care about trying to get them away from these screens when it's possible, and then also giving them a lot of leeway on due dates, because this is such a big thing that's going on, and a missed deadline is not the end of the world.
Just to add on to that, one of my asynchronous assignments, I had them interview someone over 70 years old to see what they knew and had experienced of Louis Armstrong as part of our history. And one of my students, it turns out his grandma was the travel agent for all these jazz players, and she knew Louis Armstrong and had all these great stories about him. And it was something that he and his grandmother had never talked about. So trying to get them away from their screens, like Callie mentioned, was really powerful and appreciated, and trying to get them to connect with other people was a successful piece too.
No, this is actually a great line of discussion we're having. So I'm going to skip what was planned to be the second question. I'm sorry if that throws anybody off, but I am going to go to a variation of this third. You've all indicated from your written answers to some degree that dance class online is at best it's a placeholder and not a replacement for the in-person experience. So while rigor and technique might be possible to pursue online, and Brittany, you mentioned how the bit more ability for one-on-one feedback, and Karla, you mentioned how surprised you are at the ability to use the online tools to push students that needed extra pushing. The humanity of dance, it can't be. And this is, I guess, debatable too. It can't be replicated in a virtual world. So, Kaleena, you mentioned it's exhausting to engage through cameras. And you mentioned in your email, empathy and kindness are much needed in this particular time between teachers and students and among the students themselves. So my new add to this particular question is, can you talk a little bit about, as dancers and instructors, why do you think it's so extra exhausting to be doing this through Zoom versus in person? And I imagine you have some insight there. And then I do have a follow-up, but we'll go with that one first. Why do you think it's extra exhausting to be doing this through a screen?
I just think all the sort of nuances of teaching are completely clobbered and gone. Knowing when to move on with material because you can gauge the level of understanding is shared through a thumbs up if you can get that, so it's, and you can't feel when a student is quietly struggling and, doesn't want to ask a question. It's just all of that is gone. And so, I'm getting in my screen looking and seeing how everything's going and trying to pull information. And especially since we're the ones not on mute and everyone's on mute and you just get this from kids or any student, it's emotion. I don't know. I find it very emotionally exhausting to be like, are we okay? Because of this going on, but then also, are you getting the step? And I want you to feel this immediate sort of moment of success for yourself. It's a lot. It's a lot of talking. I find that I do much more listen and repeat and follow along because of the footwork. and the sound of it. And so talking through things, I'm just like, I'm getting tired of myself. So
Yeah, I feel like as dancers, we feed off of each other's energy, and the students have learned to do that too. So I think that's the biggest thing we're missing. That's why you can't feel if someone's getting something or not, or if they walk in, you can tell right away if someone's having a bad day when they walk into class, whether we tell them to leave it outside the door or not. You can feel that when they come into a Zoom class, even if you give them a chance to talk about, I usually give my students like, give me, what happened today, give me one thing that you want to share. And even in that one little moment, it's still not as informative because you just are not in the same space. You can't feel that energy, and it changes everything.
I agree 100% with what both of Callie and Brittany said. But also, I think teaching young adults, there's this really heavy lift where each generation kind of has to take on the world that the generation before is leaving them with. And for our young adults, this is really a discouraging and distressing time, worrying about climate change, worrying about COVID-19, worrying about the state of our world, our political unrest. It's really a lot. So I try and bring a kind of positivity and understanding and recognition of these things, partly because we're talking about the history of jazz, which has its own really tragic but triumphant history. So I'm trying often to talk in bigger terms with them and just keep them buoyant and feeling that their art making it's a necessity for our world and it's important, and that they have to continue to feed it and nourish it. So I feel like I'm always trying to give them good food in the assignments, in the energy, in the dancing, in the way we interact, so that they can kind of feed themselves and keep going. It's distressing. It's hard for them.
That's a great comment, Karla. I mean, everyone's comments, but Karla, you're allowing me to segue actually now into what was the planned third question, which. So given all of this, what does it mean, do you think, for this generation of dancers whose trainings might have been or might need to continue to be online for a substantial part of their education? Like I sort of at the top sort of talked about how this may be, we know it's a summer thing. We at the U, we're considering, so for folks knowing this, I actually work video conferencing and health sciences at the university. There's already dialogue about whether or not we'll move into how we're going to accommodate fall online. So what do any of you think about what this might mean to this particular generation, having to have this be part of their development?
I think although we all hope this is temporary, I think in a way, I feel like I need to imagine that it's always going to be this way, because the dancers that I have are about ready to go out into the world, into their performing careers, their teaching careers. They're just going to have to navigate this in a hard confrontation. They really can't ease into it. Any jobs they were thinking of taking for teaching or performing are already changed by this. So I'm looking for ways to be creative with it. I'm looking for who's finding a way to use this tool and all of its options in the most creative, most forward-thinking, most useful and connective way. And I feel like we're barely scratching the surface. I'm determined to get rid of this lag between, I got the Ethernet, so now my voice is ahead of the music. So it's the opposite of lag for me now, but I'm going to be getting a mixing board. We're going to use jukebox. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. And I feel like that's just a requirement. We just can't pretend it's all going to go back to normal, because it's not, in my opinion, my humble opinion.
I guess I'm existing sort of on the opposite spectrum. I read an article early on, just like considering not getting very good at Zoom, because this is such a not part. I mean, this is not the point of what we do, and so I've been giving good quality classes and information, but also keeping that in the back of my head, because long term, if this is the reality, what does that mean for all of us? What does that mean for the students we're teaching? I mean, what do they do after, they get all this Zoom technique training? What do we do with that? Do we give Zoom performances? It's just where is this leading has been weighing heavy on me, and just sort of my place in it and my support of it. And it is a great tool to have, in case of a snowstorm. Okay, we still can have class, but I also want to make sure that we do give time for rest and pause when huge events like this happen. Maybe this is a good time to reflect and get off the computer. It's both. I don't know. I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah, I think I'm maybe in between, but I am finding, I've done a lot of surveys with the families just to see where they're at and how they're dealing with everything. And a big thing has been, the fact that the lagging, the connectivity, depending on where they're at, as far as internet goes, has been an issue. And so the only thing I can control right now is my classes and how they come across. So I have invested a little bit of my money that I have currently into getting a lapel mic and getting a camera that is going to show more of my body, because that, like, I'm using my computer screen and I'm constantly like doing this kind of thing, and I'm making it work. But for me, it's like, I want to, especially because I own the studio, I want everyone to be happy. I want them to continue to come. Because right now it looks like we're going to have to continue to do this for a while. How am I going to keep them engaged and interested if I'm constantly having to move my screen from my face to, okay, well, now watch my feet? And so I'm trying my best to, with the finances that I currently have, to maybe make my little setup better for the students. But also realizing that, like, the kids, no matter what, they're not going to want to be online all the time, even though that's what they're used to. Like you said, they all are, like, this is their generation. All they do is this TikTok stuff, and they're constantly on their phones. But yet when it comes to learning dance, this is new to them. They're used to seeing a teacher. They're used to having that energy. They're used to us being able to pick them up, hopefully, and get them out of their funks. And so with having to be on a screen all the time, I feel like they're going to need more support. Like Kaleena said, maybe like less time of being on the screen, or even giving them more opportunities just to talk. I mean, I've even played with, like, maybe I should just set up a meeting for the kids just to hang out in a setting all together, even if I'm just like there as a, just in case, just to make sure that nothing happens and no one comes into the Zoom room that shouldn't be there or whatever, but giving them the space to be able to, like, hang out, because they don't have that right now. To me, I feel like the biggest part that they're going to need is more socialization somehow, and support, because I think it's harder to get motivated online.
Right. Wow. Well, we are at time, but I could I know we could keep going, frankly. I do want to address that the comments that have been coming through online, other than that people also do a pet parade. There was a question about Canvas, and Moodle was brought up actually in the comments. For the folks that would like to know this, Google Classroom would be a possible free version of Canvas and Moodle. It's basically a learning management tool that allows an instructor to sort of build courses and share them, and then enroll students or register students. And that way they have a single portal to get all their info, the asynchronous content, the links for a real-time Zoom meeting or WebEx. So I just want to point that out for folks out there, that if because Canvas and Moodle are enterprise level, Google Classroom would be a lower level one for the smaller departments or units that are doing this. Lag. Karla hit nail on head. A lot of comments about how do we fix this lag. I have shared some video about audio, and I do have a lag video actually in the works right now. So I'll try and get that out this weekend for folks. The key is, and I've said this in a previous video, if you could use two devices to join your Zoom. There's a host Zoom, and then there's a Zoom on a display. And that second device is connected to a flat screen. You'll be listening to the audio at about the same time that your students are. So then if you dance according to that audio rather than dancing according to your host computer, you're more than likely going to be in time with them. Now, there's still latency because everyone has internet issues at their own places. But there will be a video to specifically address the lag issue. Because, I mean, as I've said, Laura teaches, and I'm married to her, and I see the lag issue she has too. So having said that, I think I'm going to go into a wrap mode here. I want to say on the YouTube, I'm going to post a link to a Google form for folks to give feedback, but also I had asked the three presenters here to give bonus tips that they have come with. Perhaps they could, I'm going to invite you three to either comment in the YouTube link with your tips rather than doing it here, or use the forum. So for folks online, you'll have the opportunity to sort of give some feedback and give your own tips. I'm going to send that form out via the YouTube chat. But I did want to go with just some final thoughts just to close us out. I want to thank the three of you for joining. Thank you very much. I think the info you shared is great, and I'm very happy that we've had this very public discussion. My interest was that we would have spurred transparent public discussions. I know that in the dance community there are little pockets. Every subset of the community is doing this. Wouldn't it be nice to see some overview type stuff? In a large way, and I'm betting you, I'm hoping, that folks larger than myself maybe are spurred to do this because there's some clear interest. We've got some good audience here, and you have some great information to share. And so, really the question that I want to put out to everyone is how do we amplify all these conversations so that everyone is getting the information they need? That's truly the question. And as a final thought, I sort of wanted to bring something up. This is, if people can see it, my copy of Envisioning Dance on Film and Video from 2002. I was very excited back in the day to get this copy. It's primarily talking about dance on camera, is the intended thing, and it's got some great context here. And the thing I wanted to do, I just wanted to read out to folks in a hopeful kind of way what Bill T. Jones had in this particular text. So let me just read this. I hold to dance because it is decidedly concrete in the face of a world in which ever more experiences are facsimiles. But there is no small irony in the exciting prospect of this most natural of human phenomena, the dance, being transformed through the medium of technology into a poetic, parallel, virtual incarnation. So, for me, I feel like that's a hopeful thought. I know Bill T. Jones was talking about dance on camera, not necessarily dance online, but still the notion of a parallel virtual incarnation, a poetic parallel virtual incarnation. And perhaps we are at that intersection now, as by need we have to put dance online. What would be a good positive outcome that there is, a melding of universes? So having said that, that's all I've got. Any final thoughts or comments from the panel today?
Just want to say thank you, Paul, for all your generosity with your wisdom and knowledge and support. It's really made a difference, I know, for my teaching and for everyone that you've shared your work with. Thank you.
I owe you $5.
And it was a really treat to be with Kaleena and Brittany, who are two dancers and teachers I really admire. So great to see you sort of online.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you all too.
All right. Thank you. And with that, we're going to close out this stream. And so folks know this is recorded, so we can revisit. You three can certainly watch your performances online now. And thank you again. And we'll be seeing you some other time.